Larissa.
Hey, Lauren.
This is Into the Wormhole, and we are here to talk about Star Trek.
Yay!
I already said our names, but
Yeah.
it's Larissa and Lauren of Into the Wormhole. I'm Lauren Lowen, and this is Captain
Larissa Maestro. What's up?
All right. We sometimes talk about doing some topics on the show, but I wonder if this one truly is unique.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that there are more men podcasting than women. I don't mean that in a weird way.
No. I mean,
And-
if you look at the numbers,
Yeah. And
most
now
podcasters are men, and most podcasters are white men. That's just how the world is. The
especially in
podcasting
Star
world,
Trek.
Yeah.
And again, like,
And again, nerd
I don't
world.
think I'm saying anything that's going to shock anyone.
No.
But we are actually going to talk about pregnancy and birth in Star Trek because we thought it would be fun to have a maternity episode. Because, surprise! After the very first episode, I found out I was pregnant.
Yay!
So we are two female Star Trek fans. One of them is expecting. And we're going to talk about the pregnancy representation, I guess,
Yeah.
in Star Trek. Maybe not all of them in detail, but yeah, that's our inspiration for today. So if you guys remember in the very first teaser episode we did, which is I think 20 minutes, right?
Yeah,
Larissa?
it's a short one.
We have oh no, I'm sorry. It's not even that. We did it for transporter accidents.
Oh, yeah, transporter accidents.
Because we had the drinking game with Tuvix.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my
Um,
God. I forgot about that.
So we did that. We had our little Gatorade Frost Warp Core cocktail or something. I definitely looked forward to having more of that, but we stopped. And it wasn't just, random. It was because I found out I was pregnant. So I thought, okay, well, that's not going to happen for a while. So yeah, this whole time we've been recording, I've been slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm 5 weeks out from my due date. So
Yay!
it seemed like a good time. If I'm not going to have a baby shower because of the pandemic, then hey, I'm going to have a podcast episode where I talk about pregnant Star Trek characters.
I love it. This episode of Into the Wormhole brought to you by Lauren Lowen's pregnancy.
Yes.
Feel free to send her gifts.
Future little Trekkie here.
Oh, wait, hang on. I stopped for some. Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't stop recording. Everything's fine. I'm just panicking. Okay.
That's like the motto of 2020. Everything's fine. I'm just panicking.
It's so
And
true.
pregnancy, obviously.
Oh my God. Oh, so yeah. So this is really exciting. So there is actually only one other podcast episode that I could find where people talked about pregnancy on Star Trek, and that was Women at Warp.
I kind of assumed.
Which makes sense that they would be, because they would be the only people that would talk about it.
Yeah, when I just tried pregnancy or maternity Star Trek, Women at Warp had someone did a kind of a guest article like you did, Larissa.
Yeah.
About particularly Seska.
Yeah.
And how that whole storyline maybe had some troubling aspects of it from a storytelling.
I mean,
Yeah, so
just
it was
a little bit.
Just a little bit. It was, yeah. So seeing what I could find just on a sort of blind search was interesting. But I didn't find much, actually. I thought for sure this may have been covered more.
Yeah. There really isn't that much. Really, Women at Warp seemed like the only resource for people talking about this subject. And I mean, I understand why particularly male Star Trek fans wouldn't even think to talk about this because whatever, but this is something that, especially when we first started talking about doing this episode, I was just like, oh my God, they were pregnant and they were pregnant and they were pregnant and they were pregnant too. And oh my God, there are so many pregnant people on this show.
And the cat was pregnant.
And Spot was pregnant. I will just go through my list. I made a comprehensive list. So here are the people that were pregnant in the Star Trek franchise that I remember. And I probably left some stuff out. Okay. Deanna
Right.
Troi, Keiko O'Brien, Kira Nerys, Spot, Alyssa Ogawa, B'Elanna Torres, Samantha Wildman, Seska, Tripp Tucker, Laurel, Winona Kirk, Catherine Janeway, Amanda Grayson, Loxana Troi, Kess, Cassidy Yates, and Aline from Friday's Child. Those are all the people. Those are all the people that I have on the list. And this is not me looking up who was pregnant on Star Trek. This is me like thinking in my brain, who was pregnant on Star Trek? So those are all the people I could remember that were pregnant.
Okay. You easily named like 4 or 5 characters that I totally forgot. Like,
Yeah.
Cassidy, and I meant to bring up Loxana Troi.
Yeah.
Oh,
and also because that episode is so wonderful. I love.
It's her last episode.
Yeah, it's her last episode. I love that episode.
Which, to quote you, are we ever going to talk about that again?
Right? Are we ever going to?
I was waiting
So,
in Picard
I know.
to be like,
does she have a kid sibling?
like she would have a half brother. Yeah,
Yep.
Troi would have like a half brother. That would be kind of
Apparently not.
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, so many characters, so many pregnant characters. And then on top of that, my sister reminded me of the TNG episode Galaxy's Child, where that big alien in space has a baby that then suckles on the Enterprise, and they have to figure out. It's the episode where Leah Brahms comes back.
I totally remember that. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's always the great thing where, I mean, isn't that essentially like Cloverfield, where it's like, dear God,
yeah,
it's just a baby, like, and then the parent comes out and is like, like 100 times bigger.
Yeah, we love a monster story. We love like a big old like monster or alien that we don't understand that ends up just being a normal kind of animal.
We definitely have we have a few Star Trek fans who are parents, women who have given birth.
Yeah.
Me, and then like some outside people, which I'll be interested to see what they say in their observations. I definitely, as I was just casually catching up on some Star Trek months ago, obviously the child is like a very pregnancy centric story, and something that we've talking about for a while in different ways for different themes. And then I kind of watched Begotten from Deep Space Nine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which if you listener need a reminder, that is actually a wonderful just parent episode in general. The main story is Odo finds a baby changeling and has daddy issues with Dr. Mora. And then the B story is Kira Nerys giving birth, which I think out of all the characters you mentioned, Larissa, Nana Visitor as Kira Nerys, that was maybe the only storyline where the actress actually was pregnant and they had to write it into the show.
Yeah. I mean,
and so
every other time they literally hid the actress behind a big coat. You know, like when Gates McFadden was pregnant, they put on the coat. When Roxanne Dawson was pregnant, they put her in the coat. Like they're just like, put her in a coat, it's fine. Or Sonequa Martin Green got pregnant, they took a break. They took a long break from the show.
Yeah.
So things are getting better than they were. Now it's like, I want to take a break and I don't want to film. So I'm going to take a fucking break because I'm the star of the show. But I guess you got to keep working.
I guess the episode, the host, I know you're a Crusher girl. So
yes, she was so
the episode,
pregnant.
she's like, I read the notes and she's like really, I mean, she's like in her trimester by that point. And she is, so I always remember that episode because it just like opens in on her and Odan. Like just like, they're like just making out. And the camera is so uncomfortably close on them. And then when you read that, it's like, well, she was really pregnant, so they couldn't do like a zoom out shot.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay, that's why. And I'm just trying to imagine this like giant belly between them.
I know, God.
Yeah, but the whole episode, she's behind desk, and you're right, like the coat, or just like those classic sort of like, we're gonna hold a big bag in front of your belly and only show you from the shoulder up.
Right.
But yeah, like the Begotten with Kira and Odo. What I liked about that one and the child was that like, here's actually 2 episodes where there's a main focus on the actual childbirth, even though we're definitely going to talk about or mention like other characters where, there were other maternity, pregnancy issues, even if they weren't as big. But I definitely,
or even if they don't show the actual birth, like they don't show Seska giving birth, they don't show Loxana giving birth. Like
B'Elanna is actually very.
They
for being
barely
such a main
show
part
that.
of Voyager. It's just like an afterthought in the final episode, I think.
Yeah, it's literally like the last thing that happened.
You just hear like crying over the comm, and it's like, oh, that happened.
We made it back to Earth, and there's a baby. Bye.
So I thought it was really interesting, not only TV, but also just thinking about it as someone who's been. This is actually my second pregnancy. So just thinking about looking back at Star Trek, these episodes that I saw first when I was a kid, or at least much younger, in Deep Space Nine, and just thinking about how these were not only written just as TV, but also written as pregnancy in the future.
Yeah, I am really interested to hear, now that you are pregnant and have been pregnant and have given birth and have experienced it, like what you want technology to be able to do for you.
Gosh.
You know, like that is because like the whole time, like I've had a miscarriage and I've had an abortion, but I've never given birth. So I've been pregnant before, but I've never had a baby. And I was just like watching these birth scenes and being like, couldn't they just, I was like, where's the technology? Like, I want to see some tech happen. Where's the tech? Like, where's the fancy, because like here we've got like fucking tricorders that can tell you exactly what's wrong with someone. We've got dermal regenerators that can just fix your fucking problem, fix your dislocated shoulder, whatever, all that shit. Everything's easy now. How come we still have incredibly painful vaginal birth in the 24th century?
Well, thank you, because that's one thing. Exactly the same thing. Like people hold up like a cell phone to a brain, and it's like, all right, the tumor's gone. The most like sci-fi it gets really intense because I think they're in a shuttle accident. Miles, Keiko, and Kira. Yeah. And what happens is Keiko is you know, like pretty far along. I think she's supposed to be in like her second trimester. Like she has a bump.
She's showing. She's showing quite a bit. It's obvious she's pregnant. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll say like 4 or 5 months just to, you know, throw that out there. And so there's a shuttle accident. There's some trauma to Keiko. She's going to lose the kid. And Bashir actually stimulates Kira's body to make all these hormones to prep her womb and expand her and get her ready. And then he teleports Keiko's baby from one womb to another. Like, that's pretty intense.
That's really intense.
Star Trek-y medicine. That's what you kind of expect,
that's
right?
Some fucking Star Trek shit. That's what I'm here for. That is what I'm fucking here for. But also, I watched that episode again. He never says he transported it. He never says that. He just said, yeah. And I was like, wait, but then how did you do it?
Like a C-section, reverse C-section?
Like how?
I'm assuming. I'm assuming he had to do something like that
because it happened in like the runabout, right? Like it had to be that. Like it's not like he could do full on surgery. I'm so
not
confused.
Be sanitary.
I'm so confused.
It's like what else got into her belly?
I think you're supposed to assume, but that was like me being a Trek nerd, being like, "Excuse me." You didn't explain
I don't
think
so.
You didn't explain this fictional thing.
But so there's a really intense sci-fi moments like that where it's like the future.
Yeah.
And then like B'Elanna is still going to sickbay over false labor. And and I'm sure like whatever, like maybe the Klingon human, like, but still.
But she's a Klingon human hybrid. There have been Klingon human hybrids before. There's definitely got to be data and research like this. I was just like, come on, like no.
Yeah, and it's just like even today, like my first pregnancy, they basically had a date for me if I didn't give birth by this point. I was just going to be like, you know, induced labor. And it just seemed weird to be that far in the future. And it's like, really? They're still doing this?
Yeah.
And they have things like with Kira, like she wants to have a traditional Bajoran birth.
I love that.
That's very
cool.
common. And I realized that's how they get kind of the drama and the humor in her episode.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, it's like, fuck you writers, because I guess Bajoran women, first of all, they don't get nauseous, they sneeze.
Oh my God.
So it's like, oh, I would take that in a heartbeat. Thank you.
My friend Sarah Wilfong, that's exactly what she said. She was like, I wanted to slap Kira every time she sneezed. Because she was like, I had like horrible morning sickness and I was like throwing up all the time. And like here Kira is just like, achoo. Oh no, it's so inconvenient. Achoo.
They placed bets. I remember one episode of like how much she sneezes.
Yeah.
But it's like that. Oh, Bajoran women, they don't get sick. They just sneeze. And I too, like both pregnancies, I had like 3 or 4 months where it was just constant. I mean, it's like a constant hangover. And the second time, I'm also watching my toddler's son in a pandemic. So it's just like, fuck my life.
I mean,
and
that's kind of a lot. It's kind of a lot.
But on top of that, like, of course, Bajoran women, their thing is that for a traditional birth, it's all about relaxation. So they just have to get really relaxed and listen to like a lot of Enya or whatever.
Right.
And then they give birth and it's fine and it's not painful. And then Troi's is an alien entity that, you know, I guess bestows the kindness of, I'm going to be born by you, but I'll make it easier and not give you any pain. So she, of course, has a pleasant experience.
In that really strange birthing chair thing. Did you notice that chair?
I'm sure they did that because they just thought it'd be ridiculous to have, you know, Certus with like her legs sprawled up. And
yeah. I mean, to be honest, and again, I have never given birth, so I don't know physically how it works in your body, but like the way that the chair actually looked like it made sense to me, because the way that like you're sitting in a hospital bed when you're on your back, like you're not really letting gravity help you at all.
Technically it's not like the best position.
Yeah, and that chair looked like it would be helpful.
Kind of, yeah. I want to say that probably is a variation at the very least of something that is real. You know, there are women who like do it standing up and they hold on the bars. Women can give birth in a bathtub. I mean, there's so many like different ways.
Oh, you like Kess holding the bar?
Yeah.
But they give birth, but not out of their back, out of their vagina.
Oh God, that's right. I totally forgot about her pregnancy.
Gives birth at her back, which is kind of interesting, actually. I was fine with that. I thought that was fine.
Gosh.
Yeah. There's so many. There's so much.
So it's funny, like the person who probably has what we would consider one of the more like current day births is like, I feel like we need to give an honorable mention to Keiko.
Yes.
Yes. 10 Forward.
We have to talk about this because this is my fucking favorite.
Lead us in.
And we have actually mentioned this episode several times over the course of our podcast because both of us love this episode. It is Disaster from TNG. It's the same episode where there's the kid that is the first officer in charge of radishes. It's the same episode where Troi has to take command of the ship because they're stuck on the bridge. Keiko is giving birth to Molly O'Brien in 10 Forward, and the only one there to help her is Worf. And it is the shit. Because he is so, it's like he's the perfect person to be in that situation. Because he's like, not now, Keiko. It's not a good time to have a baby.
And it is the ultimate fish out of water kind of scenario for comedy.
It's wonderful. My favorite line is when he's like, congratulations, you're fully dilated to 10 centimeters. Yes. You may now give birth.
What do you think I've been doing? Yes.
But then he's so like sweet and like very encouraging. Like when he's like, push. Like that was so, and she's like, I am pushing. But like,
because isn't there a line? He's like, I must now calmly but firmly encourage you to push, Keiko, push. And that's when she loses it in a very
I love it.
Disasters is, we've talked about this before, but it's definitely the Star Trek writers' take on a 90s disaster film.
Yes.
Yes. All the ones that were happening, whether it was like Twister or the volcano ones, or even.
Oh my God, there's more than one volcano one. There's more than one.
I know, there was.
Yeah. Armageddon.
And, earthquakes. They had everything from, or even like that like Godzilla one they did with Matthew Broderick, where it was just like shit exploding and stuff. And so the formula of those episodes is very much all these little like character vignettes. And so one of them is the fact that when Enterprise is dead in the water, Keiko is stuck in 10 forward. By the way, just gonna throw this out there. I feel like Keiko has, out of the maternity wear department, she's got a snazzy little look going on. That feels very futuristic, but I'm like, I'd wear that.
Absolutely. I mean, we just should give like some little props to Rosalind Chow's outfits on these shows.
Right. It's almost like she's the woman who's giving birth in a taxi while they're zooming away from Godzilla or a tsunami, or, you know, stuck in an elevator. Like, she's meant to be that character from those films. And so it does feel very, you know, 1994 or whatever, where she has like this birth, and Worf, of course, is delivering and thinks he's prepared because he's done this on the holodeck,
because he's,
right?
As somebody on Women at Warp said, like, something about like he's watched some YouTube videos, and so he's
right. I know how to do. Nailed it. Like, it's like the side by side comparison.
Oh god,
that one I love, because one of the things that I definitely read my first time being pregnant was that, like, pregnancy, although it can happen quick, especially after you've had your first kid, is still like 2 to 3 hours. I feel like your first time, it's crazy because the doctors will tell you, like, you're gonna feel some stuff, and it might take like a whole day for your body to actually be ready to go into labor. So you know, you should go and have lunch with your friend or go for a walk with your dog. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And so one of the things you always read about TV and movies is that it really is like Keiko's just like in a matter of 30 seconds, like, whoo, I'm having contractions, I'm ready to go, like, we're gonna have a baby. And it's like, it does not happen like that.
That's not how it works, you guys. Just so everyone knows, this is fiction. These are not actual depictions of birth. I did really, because like, as we said earlier, like, I was like, excuse me, where's all the fucking tech? Why are all these births just painful vaginal births? This is one where I get it. You know, like, you can't get to sick bay. I totally understand. Like, you've set up a situation in which this is acceptable to me because it's believable. Like, like, otherwise I'm like, why is she screaming so much? Like, somebody help her. Where's the doctor?
Or just where's the... I mean, I'll be honest, too. Like, it's just like, what about an epidural? I had an epidural, and I even referenced Star Trek when I went to one of my classes because they had this chart we had to fill out, and it kind of mentioned... It was to help couples determine if both... and I don't want to say, you know, obviously, single... parents can have a child too. Yeah. But
most people,
you know, as Odo has proven, there's a dot. We don't want to, like, you know, surrogate adoption.
Changelings can have a little child. Yeah, you can, apparently, according to data, you can build your own child now as well.
Yeah, lol. Truly, like,
yes.
Yeah, so we definitely want to be all inclusive and say there are many forms of parenting.
But like, as far as vaginal birth goes, and like traditional human vaginal birth is what we're talking about.
In this case, yeah.
In this case,
like
in particular.
So they gave me like a chart, and it was determined if, like, both people involved were on the same page as far as, like, how much they wanted to rely on natural processes versus
interesting.
Like any sort of like drugs or surgery. Like, how far do you want to go before you call in a C-section, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And mine were all like on the side of the spectrum that was like, dude, like, drug me. I trust doctors. And I just remember telling Keith, like, dude, I'm a Star Trek fan. Like, I believe in science and medicine.
Yeah, like, please
that's what I want to do.
This has been researched. I want them to do it.
Yes. So I had an epidural, which I thought was going to make me all kind of like loopy. And if people don't know, like, the epidurals today, it literally is like an IV they put in your spine. Yeah. And it just constantly drips painkiller and makes you numb from the waist down. And it was crazy because I kind of thought it'd be like going to the dentist maybe, where I was all loopy, but I wasn't. I was fully conscious like I am right here. And
but you just can't feel anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was so strange. Like, but I literally thought of the child.
Yeah.
Where Troy's just like, I feel fine. I don't feel any pain. and I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to have to talk to Larissa. I'm literally like giving birth. And I'm going to be like, I'm going to have to call Larissa and tell her it's exactly like Troi and the child. Like, I didn't feel any pain.
For real. That's how we can just, instead of thinking of the child as like the sort of disaster that it is, why don't we just think of it as a depiction of what it's like to give birth when you've had an epidural?
And your ex kind of just like decides he's going to come in and watch you give birth.
Riker, get the fuck out of there.
And she's like, were you there the whole time, you cheeky bastard?
No.
And it's like, dude.
That's like early in their relationship too. Like they haven't really developed that like they're just like best friends. You know, he's still just like kind of her ex-boyfriend at this point, and like his whole attitude toward her pregnancy is so
it's weird,
uncomfortable, because they were writing it from the perspective that he's a jealous ex-boyfriend instead of how they could have done it, which is they're still best friends and he's her best friend and he could be there for her and be like, are you okay? Like, this is a scary thing that happened to you. You didn't even know that this was happening. Can I do anything to help you? And then he would have been invited. You know what I'm saying?
Can we talk a little bit more about the child then?
Okay.
I feel like maybe.
Yes. I feel like the child and talking about Kira and then
are the main ones.
But then I also do want to talk about Samantha Wildman.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm curious too, because I kind of gave you the homework to be like, you come back with that recon. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I watched that shit.
Because I don't remember like her.
Yeah.
Actually giving birth.
Yeah.
I just remember there's like spikes, and I'm like, how do you do that with all the spikes?
So many times that things were glued to babies on this show.
Exactly. Oh, the Borg babies.
Oh, the Borg babies.
I was like, those poor kids.
I know.
The drawers, the Borg drawers.
I know.
Borg drawers.
This little Borg womb drawer.
So, yeah.
It's a womb room.
Oh, thank God they gave up on that. I know. Although we technically see like one more drone or Borg baby and with one from Voyager, but still that doesn't count.
Where they make a baby from the doctor's mobile emitter, and
they don't even mean to. It just
happens.
Like, yeah.
That was weird. That was very weird.
So we have the child, which is season 2 was the first episode of season 2, and so it's kind of fun because there were a lot of changes. They got more money. We have Pulaski. Riker has his beard.
Isn't this also Guinan's first episode?
It is. It's Guinan, and I mean, you talked about Pulaski, but I didn't realize until I read the notes that it's Guinan's first episode too.
So basically, Deanna and Pulaski meet in 10 Forward instead of Sick Bay because they want to introduce this set to the viewer, and they want to introduce Guinan as well. That's the only reason why they're in a bar talking about it instead of like, why are they in a bar? Why are they in a bar though? I just don't understand.
Well, okay, let's rewind a little bit, because before what happens is
oh yeah, sorry.
I want to talk to you about this scene.
We got to talk about sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about
that happens before this.
Let's talk about Deanna getting violated by a point of light.
Okay, yeah, so yes, because poor Troi, this woman has been violated. I mean, there's other characters too, but Troi especially, like,
yeah.
And maybe mild spoilers for Picard, just FYI.
Oh yeah, mild spoilers. Yeah. Also, like trigger warning, like,
yeah,
you know, like, this is not comfortable stuff to talk about.
Because Troi has been like violated physically, mentally. We find out in Picard she and Riker lost their first child, so it's like shit. Like,
yeah,
spoilers. Like this she loses this alien child too. So it's like she loses 2 children, and as someone who's also dealt with miscarriage, you know, it's just like, oh God, like this poor woman.
Like, fucking poor Deanna. Like, she's been like brain raped and space raped, and she's lost kids, and she's like, what the hell, man? Like, it's not fair. Like, poor Deanna.
So Marina Sirtis, I know she was so happy to get this episode in theory because she was worried about getting fired. She was worried Roddenberry was going to fire her. And I think he told her at LeVar Burton's wedding. That may not be true. Maybe another wedding or like a party they had, an industry party, but they were at some sort of function. And he was like, guess who season 2 opens with? And it's like, it's going to be a Troi episode. And she was so happy because she was like, yay, I'm still on board for season 2. And I have a whole... And this is what she gets.
It's fucking this.
And it's problematic. I have to admit, as a kid, I didn't really like pick up on how problematic this was.
I didn't really understand what the hell was going on with this one. I remember being like, why is she all of a sudden... like, I didn't understand I didn't get the connection between the point of light.
Yes.
1,000 points of light. I didn't get it. I didn't get a connection between the light and then the pregnancy. And then I was like, okay, and what is this kid talking about? And like, how come he doesn't understand pain? Like, I remember like being like, this is weird. I don't like it.
You have a little glowing
I remember
light.
being like Deanna's so pretty. This is weird.
little generic sci-fi light goes floating around the ship and kind of like checks out some people, goes into Troy's room. And I think it's kind of an odd visual choice because in the world, again, of Star Trek and sci-fi, this thing could have just like fell on her forehead and like bloop, like caused her to glow. And then she wake up and be like, what happened? But instead they decide to have this light literally go to the foot of her bed and like a creepy horse movie, like go from the foot of her bed under the sheets and like navigate up to her... you know where I'm going, like area, as if it was, and it's like, well, it doesn't need to do that. There's a lot,
and then she like wakes up like breathing heavily, and
like oh my god. Ugh. And then also speaking of the music, I definitely noticed you probably have a word for it, but that kind of like violin, high strung, like
tremolo,
and it's meant for like intense moments of suspense, or like you see in horror movies and drama. And I'm so like, why did they have to go such like, why did they have to sexualize that scene so much? Because I think
exactly, yes,
we would obviously get that later if we were confused because they're going to have a meeting. It just seemed unnecessary.
Yeah.
And then also to make it such a like creepy scene with the music. So that kind of is definitely one of the things you look back on and you're like, oh,
come on. Yeah.
And so she's impregnated by this glowing light.
She's impregnated by a tiny point of light. And then the whole senior staff has a meeting and talks about what she should do about it. And that was like, that was hard for me to rewatch. Like, especially after just the recent news of RBG passing. And
oh gosh, you're right. Talk about timing.
Right. And like thinking about women's reproductive rights being like sort of back on the chopping block potentially. And also being a person who has had an abortion. I was 18 years old. But like I imagine, and I was in a very supportive environment, like with my family who was supportive of it, with the exception of my then boyfriend's mother, who was very upset about it, and very mean. But other than that, like I had a group of people around me who were like, whatever you want to do, like we're supporting you. We got you, whatever you need. I'm so lucky that I had that. But like watching her, this person who like literally just got space raped and had no idea that she was pregnant, is like sitting at a table with a bunch of people, with her coworkers, one of whom is her ex-boyfriend, and they're all talking about what she should do with the baby without including her in the conversation. And it's like,
yes, she has to kind of like interrupt.
She has to be like, excuse me,
I
get to pick what happens. I will say, like, I do sort of understand Worf's point of view because, like, yes, this is definitely a security risk. We don't know anything about this alien, but like I do, and I also do appreciate that once she's like, hi, my body, my choice, I'm keeping the baby, that Picard's like, okay, end of discussion. Finished.
Yeah, we should bring up that like and she's obviously in shock, I think too.
Which is why like this whole like roundtable discussion in which she's not a part of. I'm just like, you guys, could you like have some sensitivity and empathy in this situation? Like, come on. Like, look at her. She's obviously having trouble. Like, why are we doing this right now?
So we definitely have to bring up the fact that you kind of alluded to, where it's like, we get that this is a unknown alien presence, and like for all we know, in 2 weeks, like Troy's abdomen is going to explode, like it's a horror movie.
Yeah,
and some, it's going to be like Ripley and Aliens, where it's just like it's gone across a ship and it's killing everyone. So it's like we get that what they're trying to go for. Troi goes in like a trance because Pulaski is explaining that it's like when she examines the baby, it's not, or the fetus, like it's completely betazoid and human, just like Troi. Like we're not seeing any evidence of alien DNA or tissue or anything like that. So she says, as far as I can tell, it's just like if she was normally pregnant.
Yeah.
So yeah, Worf, she kind of like starts zoning out, but you can still hear the dialogue from her coworkers.
Yeah.
Worf is like, we gotta kill it right away, and then Data's like, well, if we do that though, then we can't study it, which is equally kind of an awkward, cold statement. And then finally, Riker, out of all people, is like, what is the danger to Troi if
finally somebody
let her
who's
carry
right? Finally, somebody who's thinking about her.
But I gotta talk about like one of my I don't know how this line got through.
I'm
because
excited.
I think it's hilarious. The beginning of the scene though, when they're having this meeting, Picard says, well, Troy's pregnant. There's silence. And then he continues and says, she's gonna have a baby. And then Riker goes, baby? As if it's like, yes, that's what being pregnant means. And I'm like, who? Like there's no reaction when Picard says Troy's pregnant until he clarifies that it's with a baby, as if
she's pregnant with thought.
Yes, or like
she's pregnant with pizza.
Riker, this is how it works.
She's pregnant with chocolate sundaes.
Like it should be like Troy's pregnant, and then he goes pregnant, but it's like you have to go one
baby.
Further. And I just always crack up just because I'm like, that's the most awkward way of writing that scene.
That is fucking hilarious.
I just gave Riker kind of credit for being the first person to be like, what are the dangers to Troi? But Riker during this scene is a complete asshole.
He's a total...
You said he acts like a jealous ex.
Yes.
I feel like he almost acts like a dad who just found out his teenage daughter is pregnant.
Oh my God, that too. Oh my God.
Because he is acting in such a bizarre way where I think what they were going for is, like you said, this moment where Riker's very upset, by the way, just in case you don't know the episode or something. So Riker is like, I'm sorry, but who's the father? And
oh my God, that part. I was like, shut the fuck up, Will.
He's very irritated. And I think what they were going for is the idea that Riker feels a little shocked and maybe even hurt the way, because I think what they're suggesting that in his mind, he's like, I thought Troi and I were good friends. She's been seeing someone and I don't know about it. Like, why has she cut this part of her out of my life?
With
maybe
like a tinge of jealousy. Yeah.
With a tinge of jealousy, maybe of like, oh, I wasn't expecting to feel this way.
Yeah.
But I can understand if he was sort of like shocked, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, who's the dad? But instead he acts so aggressive and possessive.
Yes, it's upsetting.
Like he's seriously upset with her, and it's so weird.
Yeah, it is so weird. Like I just think about rewriting this episode with their relationship in season 7 in mind instead. You know, where they're like they've gone through all this shit where they're like making out with other people, but they still love each other and there's no jealousy. You know, like that whole like very open, very like evolved relationship. And how it would have been so great because, like, remember, this is the season where we don't have Bev, so like Deanna doesn't have a girlfriend. You know, like
Pulaski literally just walked on the ship, and this is the first thing she does is talk to Troi in a bar.
Exactly, and so Deanna has no friends right now. Like Deanna's kind of alone, so she doesn't have Bev to talk to. Like Will is her closest friend, and if he was like I know that they were trying to like allude to that with him sneaking in to sick bay, but that didn't work. Like
That's
if
weird.
that's fucking awful. If from the beginning he was like, "Hey, this is a lot, but like I'm your friend and I'm here for you." If they just gave us one of Larissa's favorite friendship moments,
good friend alert.
good friend alert.
Or if like
then like,
or a real thing would be more of a like if he was pissed and wanted to find out who the father was because he could see that this was affecting her in such a negative, like she's obviously in this scene very still shocked and somewhat traumatized.
oh, absolutely.
Like if it was for instance, like if it was my brother and he just found out that something like that happened to me, maybe not in an alien aspect,
Yeah.
but he'd be like, I'm gonna fucking kill him. Like, who is it? You know,
Yeah.
I could understand if he was more like, someone did something horrible to something I cared about, and like, who is it? I'm gonna go after them. Yeah,
like maybe they were trying to make him come off as protective, but it really does not come off that way.
I wouldn't mind if he gets upset. It's just like he's upset for a weird reason in this case, which is like, Troi is mine, and it's like, no,
yes,
that's what at least that's how they're portraying.
Yeah.
It.
That like either of those relationships that we said, ex-boyfriend or father relationship, like in the 80s, like there would be that kind of like territorial element to the writing of that relationship or the reaction to something like this happening. Like this feels like John Hughes. You know what I mean? Like it feels like a dad being like, "What have you been doing?" And
oh my
I
God,
didn't know.
What is it, Paul Dooley? From
Oh no,
Deep
he's
Space
Paul
Nine?
Dooley.
No. I will say this though about, I want to rewind a little bit to the bar scene.
Yeah.
Because I had kind of like a slightly different interpretation, although I think yours is on the ball about how like the only reason to have it in the bar is to set up this introduction to Guinan.
Yeah.
But I remember when I found out I was going to have a miscarriage. In this case, what happened was I went to get my sonogram, and they just said, "We're sorry, but you know, like you're gonna lose this." I won't get into the details, more for just efficiency. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to be alone.
Yeah.
Like, or go. And I realized sick bay isn't alone, but sick bay is, and I felt like the hospital at the time was a very like almost like cold place, and it felt very medical.
Yes.
And I remember just telling my studio mates, and I'm part of like a collective illustration studio, and I just told them like, I just got this news. I think I'm coming in, and I just like got lunch, and all I wanted to do was to be around my studio mates.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, I kind of actually related to Troi being in such a public area where she maybe felt, especially if she felt not just that sort of horrible news, but like if she felt violated.
Yeah.
You know,
she
you
felt
probably,
alone. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to be like, here's people, it's low lit. You know, people won't necessarily bug me.
Yeah.
But I'll be around people. Like, so I
like it's
I
safer. Like
kind of.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm also like, are there not wheelchairs, or like we can't transport? She can't just like bloop her badge and say like, I think it's time. Please transport me to sick bay. Like, why are you walking across the ship? And Data's super strong.
Why are you
should
like
just carry Troi? Carry Troi.
Right? Like, why are you stumbling down the hallway by yourself? Like, there's no reason for you to be stumbling around alone.
Like, just same thing. Even when B'Elanna's like, it's time, we have to get to sick bay. It's like, just bloop.
You literally have the technology.
Getting from the car to the lobby of the hospital was one of those moments where I was like, God, this is going to be a long walk. Like, you're having contraction. And I realized Troi wasn't in pain, but she was obviously like just uncomfortable, like walking.
Yeah.
I'm so uncomfortable right now being about 8 months pregnant. I can't tell you.
I wish that there were transporters in our world right now so that you could just be at the hospital when it needs to happen.
So many things.
Bloop.
Oh my God.
I wish we could just bloop you to the hospital.
Bloop. Oh, me too. But I noticed like Pulaski and whoever is helping her deliver the baby, there's like no scrubs. We see them so many times in Star Trek have like those weird red, all encompassing robes. And I'm like, really? Not even a hairnet or some gloves? We're just gonna, okay.
Nope. Nope, not this time.
Yeah. I have a lot of people I'm close with I only want like Keith and maybe if I had to pick a second person, my mom, like when giving birth. But both of these episodes have a lot of like people in the room.
Just like people walking in and out, just an entire security detail just there. Like Worf's face
Right?
also. Worf's like, oh God, it's a birth. What's going to happen? Also, now that I think about it, if you think about this setting up Worf's reaction to delivering Molly O'Brien, like if his first experience seeing a birth was this birth where like everything's fine and the baby just pops out, like and that's informing his.
That would have been funny if he had a line about like Counselor Troy's was so easy.
This episode is just, it just seems so uninformed. Does that make sense? Like as far as the writing goes, like it's just like, why? Like you don't even, like none of y'all know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't seem like anyone has any experience with anything even close to any of these things happening. And these things are not even that, like, the only thing that's that sci-fi is that she got pregnant by a beam of light. Like everything else is like she's gonna have a kid and she doesn't know who the father is.
And the kid grows really fast once he's born.
All,
and
that's the only other thing.
Yeah, you're right. It should be like if this was done in 2020, it would be like a very that would be like a skeleton to hang like a big character episode on between her and Riker and just Troi dealing with stuff. It's horrible because then at the end too, we find out that he's unfortunately causing this specimen they have to like grow out of its container and it's a plague. And he's telling Troi, she's putting him to bed.
Yeah.
And he's like, Mommy, I can tell people are scared because he's part Betazoid. He can read the feelings. And he's like, I need to go. And she's like, what do you mean? And she's like, oh my God, you're going to die. Like, it's like the first time I rewatched this episode a few months ago, I cried so hard and uncontrollably because watching these episodes when I was 8 was one thing. And then as an adult, but now as somebody who has kids, I was just like, oh my God, this is this is so painful to watch.
Sad.
And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Oh, it really.
I almost feel like if they did this episode in today, that whole scene where he's the little ball of light and then he like becomes a ball of light and then he like basically telepathically tells her what he was doing and sort of says like, hey, thanks. I just wanted to, this is how I was going to check out humankind. I better go now. I'm going to miss you. And I guess she gets some sort of closure, but I feel like if they were doing it in 2020, it would literally be like, that would be the way the scene opens where it's like, oh, we have this little alien and they kind of want to know if anybody will do this for them. You know, and
there's consent.
Somebody has a conversation. Almost like if somebody was volunteering to be a surrogate or something like, I'll do that,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
And,
I mean, that's what this feels like. And that's what I mean, that it would be, you know, this sort of the one of two examples of surrogacy then on Star Trek, with Kira being the other one. Where, because she really is like being a surrogate for this alien. And if they had framed it that way and that they had allowed her to give consent, it's interesting to like look at literally any media, any television, any movies from this time period, and just see left and right, like, no, you didn't get consent. You didn't get consent. You didn't get consent. Here are so many places where people didn't get consent because people weren't talking about it, you know? And now it's like consent, consent, consent. Finally, people are talking about it. So now, like, it just, you can't unsee it, man.
Yeah. Well, and in stuff too, like sci-fi or other genres where, again, it's like, it's an alien. I think sometimes it's only in hindsight when years pass by. And unless it's very obvious, it's like, oh, you're kind of in a way saying this, even if that wasn't your intention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like subconsciously. Very true.
Absolutely. And in DS9, there is definitely consent. So like Kira was asked. Also, she was the only one that could do it, but she was asked to do this.
Yes,
and she is also thanked for doing it.
It's an emergency situation where it's like they're gonna lose the baby unless Bashir can move it out of this. Again, I think they're in a shuttle accident of some sort.
Yeah. There's some sort of like they were going
injured.
to Bajor, and then they were coming back. Keiko gets injured because a big rock or a meteor hits the runabout. A space rock. There's a space rock, and then it hits the runabout, and then Keiko gets injured, and something with internal bleeding, and then Bashir has to move the baby out.
I love the line is that there's been a change of address, and then that's when Kira shows the belly and explains. I think what's going on.
I love all of the interactions that Kira has with Keiko in this episode. And this is body parts.
Yes. Now I did not watch body parts for this episode, so feel free to take the reins. I kind of just did Begotten, which was the one where she actually gives birth.
Yeah, where she actually gives birth. And I wanted to see how it happened, but like it's written really beautifully. I know that they kind of also like were using this storyline to sort of like soften Kira and like make her more compassionate, make her like less like rough, like freedom fighter kind of character in a way.
I mean, they also had to. She was legitimately pregnant.
She was legit pregnant, so they were like, okay, we might as well just
work with it.
Use this opportunity, yeah. But like she is just so fucking lovely in this episode. And Now Visitor is like so I love like the face she makes when she's like feeling empathy for someone is like so sweet, and I love it. But there's that scene where she goes in to see Keiko, and this is like the first time they've seen each other since the transition, right? And she's like, "How are you feeling?" Keiko's like, "I'm fine. Like I'm gonna be up on my feet in a couple of days." And then there's like it's awkward as fuck, but it's so like it makes sense. She's like, thank you so much for doing this for us. And Kira's like, well, yeah, of course, because like you're my friends, and like I had to do it. And they have like this sweet moment like between two women that's like it's so fucking sci-fi, because like this is not a thing that you can do. Like this is not a thing that happens, you know?
You can't just move a baby after
you
been in
can't
a womb for
move
4 or 5
baby.
months.
It's not possible.
You can plant somebody else's embryo, but it has to be very, very much at the beginning.
That's not how this works.
But yeah, back to what you're saying about Keiko and Kira kind of like checking in with each other. Like those are moments that Deep Space Nine did with this storyline that I feel like never happened with. Like there should have been a scene where Riker checks in with Troi. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
It's played mainly for sci-fi aspects. By the time we get to Deep Space Nine and this whole little story that spans a couple of episodes, even if it's not the main focus. I mean, you see Kira come in with the like Bajoran maternity wear, which I love. It's just
my God, I love it.
Her uniform in a bell shape.
I know. It's so sweet.
But, you know,
I'm into it. I mean, I like it.
But there's layers as far as how parenting and pregnancy and all these things affect the characters. In fact, if we, by the time we get to the Begotten, you know, Kira obviously is kind of written in a way where she's very caring and empathetic, but she never really expressed any desire to have children, which I also appreciate the fact that Kira, especially in the 90s, could be so feminine in her relationships and still be a woman, but also still be just, you know, a freedom fighter or like a commanding officer.
Yes,
like
still be powerful.
Yes, they really allowed her. And part of that was because of Nana Visitor. Part of that was because Nana Visitor would go and really fight for certain dynamics of Kira. And I didn't realize this until I kind of went into some of the notes in the background. But originally they were just going to make it that Kira just gives birth. And it's like, great, here's your kids. Enjoy. And just
bye.
And she went to the writer's room and really stressed that Kira should be affected. Even if she's surprised by it, that there would be some sense of, you know, loss for her. And then that echoes Odo's loss when unfortunately the changeling child passes away, which is like, come on, we have to deal with two more characters dealing with
everyone's just losing
lost
kids
children.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. And so it acknowledges the start of a journey for them dealing with the loss, and it's not just like the quick old wrap up. Even if they never really talk about it again, it just acknowledges that they're going to be affected after this 45-minute episode is up. And
yeah, which is something that Star Trek doesn't do very often. Star Trek doesn't acknowledge that there's going to be a journey after the end of an episode. Normally it's like, and it's done. Well, even we'll never talk about it again.
The end of the child, just to go back, like Counselor Troi is just in her seat, and I'm like, girl, take some time off. Like, go.
For
the counselor, she needs some counseling.
Fuck's sake, take some leave. Like, where's the fucking leave? Everyone's like working through their pregnancies, working through their trauma left and right. Ugh, take some time. Take some fucking time. Okay, so there are two more pregnancies that I just briefly want to talk about, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on them. It's not a big deal. Especially this one. Tripp getting pregnant on Enterprise, like, for fuck's sake.
I've seen this one, but it's been forever, so you might as well just tell me about it.
He gets pregnant from putting his hands in some granules with a reptilian species called the Xerillians. They put their hands in. It reminds me of the crowns and coneheads. Where, God. Where they need like another apparatus in order to like have sex.
Okay.
So they put their hands in this like bowl of sand or pebbles, and then they can read each other's minds, and then all of a sudden he's pregnant, and he starts growing nipples on his wrists. It's like, what? But it's also like, okay, cool, maybe this is interesting, until he just starts acting like stereotypical
I was
woman.
about to say, I was like, let me guess. It's a lot of like, I'm crying, but I don't know why.
And I'm so hungry, and I just want all the breadsticks, and engineering is so dangerous. Like, seriously, he like in a scene, he like grabs a handful of breadsticks.
Oh my gosh, this sounds like, is this like Junior in space, basically?
Yes, it is. I kind of feel like, and so did my friend Sarah Wolfong, we feel like this is a total cop-out to like not have him carry the baby to term. So he like experiences like a tiny taste of like one day being pregnant, and then he's like, oh, thank God, now I'm not pregnant anymore. He's like, I don't think I can handle this. I don't think I can do it. And
but I have
like,
a greater understanding and sympathy now for it sounds very simplistic, which unfortunately is how I would describe a lot of the Enterprise episodes.
Yeah.
Isn't that a shame that came after Deep Space Nine too? Like the fact that we just talked about how nicely that was handled, and then I mean Voyager came between the two as well.
Right?
So we have like a whole nother thing.
Backpedaling.
And then it just
Ugh. It's just like I just like rolled my eyes the whole time. It's really it's very, very simplified, oversimplified, and very whatever. So that's it. We don't have to spend any more time on Tripp, pregnant Tripp. Whatever. The other one I wanted to talk about is Samantha Wildman on Voyager. So this one was on both the list that my sister sent and the list that my friend Sarah Wolfong sent. And both of them in particular were like, feeling a lot of emotions about how in this episode, Deadlock, it's season 2 episode of Voyager, that the ship is like sort of duplicated. It's 2 Voyagers that are like out of phase with each other, but they're sharing antimatter. So like there's a lot of like techie tech sci-fi shit going on. But in one of these realities, Samantha Wildman loses her baby, and in the other one she does not. So there's like, a scene where it's like super painful. She's just lost her child, right? And then on the other side, Naomi is fine. This is also a full fetal transport birth. So at the beginning,
which is what I wish I could have.
Like, for fuck's sake, like why? Like let's just. Can this just be the way? Can this be the way? So although at first, like, she is giving birth vaginally, she is still in a lot of pain. And then all of a sudden she's like, something's wrong. And the doctor's like, oh, Naomi's, or your baby's head spikes are scratching the inside of your uterus.
Jeez. No.
Yeah. Like, and it's like, oh my God, what the fuck? Hang on. Wall.
I love how it sounds like Walt should be like her grandfather, but it's her cat.
Sorry, where was I? I can't. Do you
Okay,
remember the
so
last
we're
thing I
talking
said?
about Naomi's forehead spikes, like, yeah, basically in her mom's womb.
So my fucking issue with that is, did they not have a game plan for this? Like, why did they let her start pushing? Why didn't they just beam her out?
Can I just say, like, even in today, like 2020, like, I knew from the beginning, I was like, yeah, I had some complications my first round. I don't want to risk making them worse. I want a C-section.
Yeah.
And my doctor and I revisited that conversation, and I just told him again why I wanted it. And he's like, okay, like, we have you. And he's just like, we'll do it this date, and you were scheduled at the hospital. Like, that's how easy it is. We can definitely do that today. So it's so frustrating that, like, hundreds of years later, they can't do that. Like, they can't even use a C-section, if not like special sci-fi technology.
Right?
Yeah, they could just use current technology to the viewer.
Exactly. So that was confusing to me. I was like, why would you let her, like, you know that this thing exists. You know that all this stuff is there. Why would you even let her fucking
on your baby? That should be a no-brainer.
But yeah, I did like cheer. I was just like, fuck yeah, fetal transport. That's what's up. Like, let's do this. Like, fucking do it. I don't know what the complications were. I think the systems were damaged on one of the Voyagers, and so the transport didn't go as planned, and on so that's why the baby dies, and on the other one everything is fine.
There's so much, like, just loss and babies dying, and like loss of even Odo's little changeling baby.
I know,
and all
it's
that, or
so
Lal.
fucking
It's
sad.
like I cried so hard when Lal. I was just like, wow,
that episode with Lal just like makes me lose my shit. I just can't handle it. It's so fucking sad. But this, was so sad. The scene with Samantha Wildman, like, finding out everything around her is crumbling, and also she just lost her baby. It's like so sad. But then like the other ship ends up getting attacked by the Vidians, so they send the baby and Harry Kim back to
That's right,
Voyager Prime. So, like, in the end, Samantha Wildman has Naomi, but it's like Naomi from the other ship. And like Harry's the Harry from the other ship, and
which they probably never get into that either.
Oh no,
again.
they
like,
never talk about that again. Yeah, so that was I thought that as far as like the technology aspect of that, I was like, fucking beam that baby out.
I'd love that.
Ugh,
man,
like,
come on.
Can we just please, like, oh my God, that was the moment where I was like, here's some future medicine that I can get behind.
Right.
Like, fucking,
I will,
for real.
Yeah.
What a great ending to this episode. Oh no, well, we have to actually end by bringing up that Catherine Janeway also was pregnant in the episode Threshold, which we have already discussed.
Yes, technically, I was like, when is she pregnant in Voyager? And Larissa corrected me and said she had her little salamander babies with Tom Paris.
Babies.
and I was like, touche, you were right.
Yep. True. So there we go. That's that. I feel like we've covered pretty much everything. I would love for, I mean, I know you'd kind of talked about it briefly, but like, what is your like dream birth situation if you were giving birth to your kid in the 24th century? Like, what would that look like? What would that look like for you?
Okay, well, first of all, there'd be some way I could still drink alcohol while pregnant.
There we go.
Yeah, like that would be nice. Like, and we would get rid of the whole morning sickness. there's just so many ways. I mean, like, for instance, because my organs are being squished, I get heartburn a lot, and they're like, here's this pill for heartburn. It would be the same thing. Oh, here's this. You take this, and then you don't have to worry about morning sickness or something. It's like,
right? Why haven't they figured that shit out yet?
And then, so that would be great, like the actual pregnancy. But the actual procedure, like, I feel like it really would be. Well, obviously, I like the idea, too, of just, like, teleporting me to the bed in the hospital. That's nice. Instead of making these people walk around the ship, like, with their bags. They still, like, pack bags.
Yeah, they're walking
like,
around with a bag.
Send an ensign to go and get that for you.
Right?
Like, goodness.
There are there were like 1,000 people on this ship. You couldn't find one person to help you.
Yeah. And I think it really would be like kind of what we already talked about, where it's like you would go and just like Bashir. I mean, we kind of assume Bashir just literally like blooped the baby to another womb. It would just be like if you were teleporting someone out of one room into another. It would be like, we're gonna take your baby out, and then it would appear in this little like medical bassinet thing so that they could, clean it up and take its weight and all that, and that would be it.
I mean, they could even like skip a step in there, and while they're beaming you to the hospital bed, they beam the kid out at the same time. You wake up, you're in the bed, the baby's in the space bassinet right next to you, and everything's done.
Bassinet.
They beam the placenta somewhere.
Yes. Right.
Everything's great. Yeah, right. But yeah, so all of those things, the like getting rid of all of the symptoms of pregnancy, allowing you to have a fucking glass of wine, for God's sake, and beaming you and your baby safely to your places where you can rest for a while.
Yeah, dude, if they can take Tuvix and like push and pull him into different combinations, they can separate, I feel like, a baby and the parent.
Yes. Exactly. I'm ready for these changes. I'm ready for this technology. Let's go.
Yeah, that would be great. So I'll let you know if they've in 5 weeks if they've come up with anything like that.
Yeah. Please let me know. Oh my God, I'm so excited for you and Keith.
Thank you. We're excited too. And the first time we record an episode after this, man, I'm probably gonna be a little sleep deprived, but I'm gonna have my like Captain Picard Vineyard wine glass.
Yes, I will.
And I don't care what time it is. If it's 10 in the morning, I'm gonna have something.
Yes,
I'll have mimosa.
We will have a toast after baby comes. The next time we record, we're going to have a fucking toast. And Lauren got me one of those Chateau Picard wine glasses too. So we will
Yay.
We'll be cheersing each other in celebration of new baby. Yay.
Yeah, like not to sound like a cliche about like the I can't drink. I wish I could have a glass of wine, but man, in 2020, man,
come on,
like I
you
really
deserve
could use
it.
a beer.
I am very excited for you to have your baby and then have a glass of wine.
Yay!
I can't wait.
All right. Well, in that case, you guys be on the lookout, because there probably will be an episode, maybe two, where we'll have somebody be a guest on the show with Larissa, and I think they have some fun things to talk about. And
because we here on this podcast offer maternity leave.
Yes, exactly. We're very progressive on the show, so not just maternity leave, paternal leave.
Yes, paternity leave as well. Family leave.
Exactly.
I mean, unpaid, because we don't have any money, but still.
The insurance is not going to cover this hospital stay.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening. And, if you and your partner are on birth control, make sure that you both get your shots,
A la Cisco and Cassidy Yates.
Like, what the fuck?
Find us in the collective at intothewormhole.show, on Instagram at intothewormhole.podcast. Into the Wormhole is brought to you by We Own This Town.
I can't even see Shakar without being like, oh, it's the sex ghost. 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 Oh, it's